welcome everyone who's here and also everyone who might be watching this recorded Zoom broadcast, which is part of Pitti's Sustainable Style edition and project. My name's Luke Leitch, and I'm here just really as a mediator, a minor figure in a conversation between two major figures of fashion. We've got Nino Cerruti, who barely needs an introduction, but as the grandson of a famous mill owner in Italy, he was one of the pioneers in ready-to-wear men's fashion with Hitman in the 60s and through to Cerruti, his own brand, which he led as a fashion brand for many years until about the turn of the millennium. And since then, he has been focusing on the family business, which is the mill, and is indeed one of the finest mills in the world. And joining Nino Cerruti is Spencer Phipps, who's a really exciting young designer, currently based in Paris, I think, but who hails originally from California and has worked for both Marc Jacobs and Dries Van Noten before he thought, hey, I've got to do something for myself. He had a great idea for a collection, and like all the best fashion brands, that really reflected the identity of the brain behind it. And we're talking about sustainability today because really it's the most significant subject in fashion right now in terms of how we can continue to produce and indulge in one of the aspects of human existence that we enjoy most, but do it in a way that doesn't have a negative impact on the planet. So that's the subject of our discussion today. And gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. I think I want to start first with just a big question, a broad question as well, which is, and I'll ask Mr. Cerruti first, because you have seen so many changes in the landscape of the business. But in the last few years, sustainability has become a very urgent topic in the fashion business. And I would love, from your perspective, for you to give us a sense of your attitude towards this as a factor in the production of fashion.
Well, I think that it is something that is unusually civilized in a world that is not very sensitive to this kind of thing. I think that sustainability is the picture of a green economy that everybody that has a bit of love for the world can only dream of. And sustainability, of course, allows to develop both very strictly technical conclusion as well as moral conclusion. Is a very nice picture that is appearing that probably will have a lot of support and is a first sign of good sense and the refined civilized attitude that we see since long time. I can only say that sustainability is finally a moment of intelligence of the human sensibility that is so suffering about a lot of things. I'm a fanatic of sustainability. When it comes to a lot of expressions, I think that I saw recently a fantastic document for the United Nations illustrating all the points that come together with the notion of sustainability. It's fantastic. It is going back to 1,000 years ago to the preachers of St. Francis that transformed through 1,000 years of technology contribution, but to bring back here all those values which make the balance between the human being and the environment acceptable. Sustainability is a fantastic concept. I hope it will be able to percore everything without being spoiled by the usual inclination and transformation that our society is always very capable to adopt when it comes a great idea and could even be creating profits and so on. We have to protect sustainability from wild profit.
And I think, Mr. Cerruti, what you see if you look at certain labels, and I think Spencer's is one of them that has emerged only recently, and I'll ask Spencer to answer the same question now, but finding profitability through the category of sustainability now seems to be possible because there's a genuine appetite in the marketplace for garments that you can purchase with the knowledge that they have not had a negative impact. But Spencer, you talk to us and tell me first whether you think that's the case, and also give us a wider vision of how your feelings about sustainability and how you integrate it into your practice.
Well, you know, my approach to sustainability is more like a goal. It's a mindset versus a kind of a concrete objective, because it's more about constantly trying to improve yourself and trying to be better. You know, the word sustainability is quite vague, especially now. You know, what does that mean? So you have to look at it more in terms of working towards purpose, just trying to be better, be more environmentally responsible, and sort of thinking outside of the aesthetics of fashion or the role of the industry, you know, being a global player and part of the, you know, economy of the world. You know, so yeah, the way we approach it is we do have customers that come to us because it's sustainable and because they know that we've made products a certain way with a very high ethics sort of checklist. But at the same time, we also want to make it fun, because you know, it's not punishment. You don't want people to sort of repent for guilt of centuries of, you know, industrialization. It needs to be something that also has joy.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. I think there has been a perception for a while that sustainability is also almost somehow an aesthetic, and it's a little bit sackclothy, so that you have to sort of
yoga, farmer's market, white t-shirt and some linen pants, and, you know, secondhand things that are not cute.
Yeah, and I think if you can import, as you say, the joyfulness and a sense of play and a sense of aesthetics into sustainability, in which sustainability is more like the engine of the car, but the design of the car, you know, is completely up to the aerodynamics and the spirit of the age, then that's how you progress. You talk about sustainability as a mindset, and I agree with you that sustainability is often a very vague concept. And I think Mr. Cerruti suggested as well, when he said he hopes that people would continue to explore it, that sustainability is also something that is misused and is misrepresented sometimes, and is used almost as a disguise or a commercial selling point, not necessarily based on true practice.
But in the case of sustainability, I think that there is the need of that one, and the need in the same time we must be very careful not to forget that in the same time that sustainability and products that are sustainable are keeping their own presence in our society, we have to at the same time evolve technically, because the world would not be able to evolve only based on a strict concept of sustainability without all of the technical progress that are coming along at the same time. The real problem is that there must be a very careful attention to protect and respect what is sustainable, utilizing technique in an intelligent way, and this can be the evolution that will accompany sustainable for a long time, which means that we will give the humanity a world that is pleasant, fantastic to live in, the world that God has made in a certain way. We must be careful not to be overcome by other attitude when it comes to the human being. Not forget that there is only one animal in the world that wears clothes, is the human body. But there must be a reason behind that one, and there must be a reason of respect for that, respect for sustainability. It is a vital concept. It's not only a convenient concept.
Very interesting. Please go on, Spencer.
Yeah, well, part of this like idea of greenwashing or sort of using that sustainability propaganda as, sort of just selling things and slapping a label on it is, sustainability is about accountability and kind of showing your process and being open about stuff, which is very, very foreign to the fashion industry. It's showing your whole supply chain and sharing that information and being public about where things come from, which, I mean, up until very, very recently, the industry has been very closed and operating almost in secret, which was the allure, the kind of the mystery of this glamorous, industry. And this is completely changing. And the economic models that we're going to need to follow to remain sustainable or to grow into sort of a sustainable future basically require a complete overhaul of the way that we've known to do business for the last 50 years.
And I think what Mr. Cerruti says about putting sustainability not sort of as an add-on but central to the process is absolutely right, because it will only, the fashion will have to change anyway to reflect the interests of the concerns of the consumer. And as we all become increasingly interested and concerned in sustainability, this will naturally occur, but obviously with a lot of effort and a lot of rigorous practice and thinking. Spencer, we're talking a little bit about aesthetics, and I suppose also a big factor with sustainability, and Mr. Cerruti has also mentioned it when he talks about the quality of the earth. But your work is very linked to geography and the environment, literal existing environments as well. So you talk about environmentalism through the product, through the manufacture and the practice, but also actually through the item as well. And is that's an explicit link for you?
Yeah. For me, it's a sort of this idea of almost like activism through aesthetics, representing your own interests and your own sort of philosophical outlook in clothing. So, you may be someone that is interested in protecting nature, therefore you are interested in trees, for example, and then we've made a collection that sort of features different trees and Smokey Bear and celebrates the community that works around that notion. So it's sort of a celebration of the community of nature and the spirit of adventure, I guess, that kind of fits in there.
Okay. And then turning to Mr. Cerruti, even though you're not through the line putting out designed clothes anymore, through the mill, you're intimately connected with the environment, whether it's from the provenance of the wool through to the treatment of, through to the creation of the fabrics and the treatment of the waste. And you're very local and localized as well. What are your feelings about the connection that you have as a manufacturer with the impacts that one has on the land through the manufacturing process?
Well, I think I've been very lucky in my life, because since the beginning when I started working, I had to deal with a company that was run by my father that was extremely careful and accurate about the quality content of material, and was very respectful about a certain kind of happy world that is funny, but textiles are the protagonist of one of the few happy area for the consumer of today. Why it is a happy area? Because it can respect natural values and cultivate the idea of privileging what is beautiful compared with what is ugly. All these kind of points I have been able during my life to practice them when I started working in textiles, and I went for a period of time working on sorting wool. The sensation of sorting wool is a quite particular feeling, because you don't have an idea of the beauty of the wool produced by the best quality of animals, sheep, and in some cases even the cashmere goat. But the cashmere goat is secret, the beauty of cashmere, because it is hidden by a forest of rough hair. On the contrary, wool, it is all there with the simplicity of this kind of sweet animals which are sheep. I started from there, and I was always connection with fine product, fine material. The wool is one of the nicest material that I call alive, that we can handle. And I thought, for me, the period in which I had to deal with fabric always gave me the feeling that you have clothes and fashion has a soul, but fabrics has an equal soul as well, because of all what composes the material, all the procedure that you produce it. I would like to emphasize one word. To take care about apparel is a very privileged job, because it takes care of a happy world that human beings have available in all the aesthetic, in the feeling, and in the values that are behind it. It is all the holy values of nature. So all these kind of things is something that I've been taught since I was a young man, starting at the age of 15, learning about this. And I'm very happy that the life has given me the possibility to switch from textile to fashion, and I approach the fashion world with the same feeling, not doing gratuitous show, but creative shows, and always trying to respect the notion of beauty, because I think that nature is beautiful, and to do beautiful things means simply to respect nature, which all of that brings you back to the famous magic word, sustainability and green.
I think that everybody hopes that there is also a sense of gratitude and appreciation that should grow out of the last few months, and what and the suffering that there has been. If a consequence of suffering can be positive and evolutionary, then that's what you have to seek in it, I think. Spencer, from your point of view, you're a very dynamic young designer. You play with lots of different codes and categories in your work. There's a lot of humor in your work, and I even though Mr. Cerruti went forward onto much more profound subjects, I want to loop back to tailoring. Simply because I'm interested. When we spoke, you were saying that it was an area that you were becoming more and more interested in, and you know, in a way, you have to know it to understand its beauty, and it is quite a slow beauty to understand. Whereas it's not really performative in the way that a lot of fashion is. But what is it that interests you in the form, and do you think it has a sort of future?
I mean, I think that you will always have a market for suits. You know, I can't imagine any government leader for the rest of the 100 years that I will, be on this planet, or however long, suddenly turning up in leggings. I mean, it's a certain level up from streetwear. There's always going to be this market for it, and always this interest in craft. And I think it's something that, in a way, if you refine the process and you really look at the suit in terms of its traceability on materials, the interior structure, making it by hand, you can do it at such a beautifully elevated way and make a product that not only is responsibly made, but will last you, because it's made well, will last you for a long time. I don't think that we're in the 1950s or whatever, where like everyone wears a suit all day long and you have like 5 suits and this is like, that's your wardrobe. It's more for special occasions, for important certain people for work. And it's more like specific purposes, but those purposes at the same time, because they're less and fewer and far between, you can get longevity out of a suit that I think you wouldn't necessarily have before.
And it's interesting because sorry, Spencer, I just wanted to note that you came back to a word that you used right at the beginning of this conversation when sort of laying out your own sustainable practice was that it was about purpose. And you talk about the purposes of tailoring, and you're right, it is a form of sort of, you know, very specific occasion and workwear.
Yeah, it's workwear. I mean, not for a construction worker, for a different kind of worker, but it is a workwear. Or it can be if you're getting married, that is a very specific task that this garment needs to, you know, it's like, I need to go to the Oscars, I need to wear a tuxedo. Well, that then becomes the purpose of this garment.
Well, that's very interesting that you mentioned the tuxedo, because I know that my colleagues over at Pitti were interested as well in this notion of the tuxedo and the evening jacket as such a key kind of symbol of masculinity, in a way that perhaps one might ask with other shifts in society is slightly sort of open to question these days, but as a paradigm of evening sophistication for men. And as we're talking about this is for both Mr. Cerruti and you, Spencer, is do you think that a tuxedo can be an environmentally conscious and sustainable garment and be something that, you know, can the values of sustainability be incorporated into evening wear? Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, you know, I loved like Joaquin Phoenix during the last award season, wore the same tuxedo to all his award shows. And it was, I don't actually know what the material, like what the actual tuxedo was made of, but I can imagine that if, you know, you use a locally made responsible wool, the interior tailoring is done properly, it's a silk that comes from somewhere, you know, that's a bio silk or whatever. Again, it's very, very refined and very, very luxury minded artisanal process. And then, yeah, you can wear that as, you know, it's a tuxedo. You're not going to wear it like every day. It's not going to be a pair of jeans that you bust through in a couple months. It's something that will last in your wardrobe for your entire life if you can, you know.
And what about Mr. Cerruti?
Well, I'm talking about the tuxedo, the smoke in different words that come out in different countries for the same kind of outfit. I think that it is a very specific case, because I'm very much against the idea that certain things have an archetype of a shape and have to be respected. Tuxedo is one of them. Single-breasted, double-breasted, short collar, with a certain kind of style. I think that the tuxedo is at the same time a statement of a person, but as well should be just the frame that should emphasize the personality and the face of the person that wears it. Otherwise, I think that is interesting, a new area that is opening now, in which we go back to what were the formal official event outfits of people 300 years ago, in which very rich kind of piece of garment were especially built and cut always at that time, always to measure, to make a very strong kind of reflect of the personality of the person that was wearing it, with an aesthetic completely different from the rigorous aesthetic of the what we call the tuxedo, which is still a child of the English style born at the beginning of the 19th century, and that was the result of the uniform of the soldiers and officers of Napoleon. So I think that I don't like to play too much around the tuxedo. Eventually, the space has to be given to the fabrics that have to be done. I think that we have to stop making a kind of a separation between fashion and fabric, because the two of them exist at the same time, and fabrics can make a fashion statement as much as a fashion statement of a shape makes a statement. I think that there is a kind of the two areas that, at least for a certain way of conceiving the work of being a textile manufacturer, because then there is always the mass production, the serial production, the production for everybody just to cover a function and so on. But when we open the door to the aesthetical world of fashion, the aesthetical world of what we wear, the aesthetical world of fabric manufacturing, there is a richness of the way of the past that can be rebrought over in a different kind of interpretation. And there is some steady value that have to be respected because, as I said, it is like the frame of a painting.
Yes, and there's the poetry of the relationship between the fabric and the cut and design only works when there's, as Spencer would say, a purpose to all of the choices made, which is why fabric is the soul of the garment in many ways, I believe. I want to begin to wrap things up a little bit now, just because we're coming to the end of our hour, and to ask a very loose and open question with which you're free to run wild, which is, what do your instincts tell you about how fashion is changing and how the relationship between the consumer and fashion is changing? And where do you think we're going to go in the midterm future? And what would you hope to see? And I am going to start with Spencer.
You know, the way I see the industry going is, yeah, we're pulling back this curtain that's been closed over the industry for so long, and it's becoming more populist, more democratic, more conscious, not only of its sustainability, but inclusivity, and just sort of like starting conversations with the world. You know, I mean, everyone's got social media now. You can access, comment, you can sort of get very involved with brands, and you can also, on the other side, as a brand, you can get very involved with your community and your followers or people. You can kind of make it more of a conversation versus a dictation. And I think that creates an interesting future that will, I'm assuming, change the industry. I mean, hopefully for the better going forward. You know, I think it's really cool what's happening. And I'm seeing it more even with like big brands, you know, I mean, the Celine thing yesterday, sort of referencing TikTok, which felt very modern and very like looking into the future. You know, I mean, for me, it was this real weird moment these last couple of years of like seeing the industry that I grew up with kind of dissolve. And now we're in this period of like anything being possible.
Yes, I keep thinking that because so many things happened this year that would have seemed completely impossible to happen, and they happened, and these were things that happened beyond our control. I think there's a mindset perhaps emerging that there are also things that might seem impossible that are not beyond our control that we can action now. And I think whether it's cultural shift or the way that companies maybe have a kind of apex psychology, so it's about us and them with the consumer up and down, I think that should change. But also I think in terms of the main subject of this conversation together, sustainability, I think there's a lot of boundary breaking that must go on. And Mr. Cerruti, over to you. Where do you think we're headed, and where would you like us to head?
Certainly the concept that comes out from fashion, and in combination with fashion, fabric production that are necessary to produce fashion items. The two things are a world that is very now closed and linked together, I think. It is certainly enjoying the expansion of the message of to what you wear is not purely a function, not to feel cold or to dress and cover your nakedness, but it is something that can accept an artistical contribution. Certainly, things are expanding in this direction. The point is that in the same time, there is the perspective that the expansion of the people that they care about what they put around their own daily life on their own body, men and women, is stimulating economical interest. Okay, the economical interest can be a support, but in the same time as well, a a kind of a banalization of the individuality and of the inventiveness. So I think that we should encourage as much as possible a certain section of people that work about this problem, which are devoted to innovation, because it's nice, it's pleasant, and it is a gift that you do to people that is a kind of the first step into being different, because everybody wants to be a bit different. But in the same time, there is a limit to what you can be different, being better or being worse. The danger for what is the world of fashion today is that there is such an expansion, such a growth of all of that one, that the confusion between what is beautiful and what is ugly happens a bit more often every day. There are ideas that are in the right direction. It's like with the language. The English speaking now language is spoken by an incredible number of people compared with a few decades ago. But there is so many people that speak such a horrible English, including mine, that is going down tremendously. So I think that fashion is a big thing, is a potential fantastic area of service to the sensibility of people, but has to be taken care with attention, because in the same time it's very easy that it will be deteriorated. And then, of course, we have to be very respectful about the fact that economy must not destroy beauty in fashion. On the contrary, has to be a specific side of it in which we don't stop trying to do things which are more beautiful and more, because the message of beauty is as beautiful as the message of the green economy and sustainability.
I think if you wrap up a virtuous fashion practice that creates growth and sustains individuals and jobs and is responsibly produced and doesn't have an impact on the earth and is created with a specific and educated aesthetic by whoever it might be, then hopefully that's a recipe for beauty. Absolutely. I think I want to say thank you so much to both of you for joining this conversation, which I thought was fascinating. It's very interesting to see two individuals together who, though you have a big commonality in that you're in the business, but you come from opposite ends of the world and you've had completely different experiences. And as you say, Mr. Cerruti, everyone wants to be a bit different, but also, you know, we all often find out that we're all a little bit more the same than we thought. But thanks so much to you for taking part in this today.
May I tell you some criticism you accepted? I loved all the head to feet outfit. Very interesting, the two jogging outfits made with stars that could become a very relaxed attitude for all the time now that we spend at home instead of going around in the world. But please cut the waist down where you put the socks and the moccasin. That I hate them. You don't mind? But I love it in spite of that one, because the other things I like it very much.
There you go, Spencer. You've had some input from an architectural master. Spencer, how have you found this chat?
Great. It's been really interesting. It's been, yeah, really nice to speak to someone of such a different generation, you know, and realize, yeah, there's some commonalities and certain, I don't know, it's just really enlightening in general.
You know, the thing about both of you is it's about passion that
Thank
creates.
you very much for the time and the attention you have paid for this kind of meeting we had. All the best to all of you. The best, and because you are doing something that is nice for humanity, while the world is full of people that do horrible things for humanity, on the contrary. So let's be happy about the job we have chosen.